Most people believe great artists are discovered. They aren't. Not at first. More often, they're misunderstood, ignored, questioned, or dismissed entirely. Jean-Michel Basquiat wasn't waiting for someone to recognize his talent. He had already decided he was an artist, long before museums, long before collectors, long before auction houses, long before the world learned his name. That distinction matters, because history rarely begins with permission. It begins with conviction, the willingness to create, before anyone agrees the work deserves to exist. Basquiat didn't start with a gallery. He started with walls, with notebooks, with streets, with whatever space he could find to leave an idea behind. Not because someone invited him, because the work already existed inside him. Perhaps that's the part people misunderstand about creation. Recognition doesn't create belief. Belief creates recognition. Someone simply has to believe first. Sometimes, that someone is you. People often imagine creativity as inspiration, a sudden idea, a moment of brilliance, a gift that arrives without warning. Basquiat understood something different. Creation wasn't an event. It was a practice. He painted relentlessly, drew constantly, filled notebooks with fragments of thought. Ideas weren't precious. They were abundant. The work wasn't waiting for perfection. It was searching for honesty. That's what separates creators from spectators. Spectators wait until they're ready. Creators begin before they feel prepared. Not because they're fearless, because they understand something more important. Confidence rarely arrives before the work. More often, it arrives because of the work. Perhaps that's why so many remarkable ideas never become reality. Not because people lack talent, because they're waiting for certainty, waiting for approval, waiting for the moment they finally feel qualified. But meaningful work has never required certainty, only the courage to begin before certainty arrives. Basquiat never waited for the world to tell him he belonged. He created until belonging became impossible to deny. Permission has always been one of the quietest barriers people carry. Not because someone explicitly says, "You can't." More often, because no one ever says, "You can." So people wait. For credentials, for experience, for the right opportunity, for someone more established to notice them. As if the beginning of the meaningful life must first be approved by someone already living theirs. Basquiat rejected that idea completely. He understood that the world rarely creates space for original voices. Original voices creates their own space. History simply catches up later. Perhaps that's why the people who change culture often appear unreasonable at first. They're operating according to an internal conviction, long before external validation arrives. From the outside, it looks like confidence. From the inside, it's usually faith. Faith that the work matters, even when nobody is watching. Eventually, the world called Basquiat a visionary. But by then, he had already spent years believing it quietly. Recognition didn't change his identity. It simply introduced the rest of the world to someone he had already become. Perhaps that's why Basquiat's work still feels alive. Not because every painting is understood, not because every symbol can be explained, but because the work reminds us of something we often forget. The world has never moved forward by people waiting to be chosen. Every meaningful contribution begins the same, quietly, before the applause, before the audience, before anyone believes it matters. Someone decides that creating is more important than permission. Maybe that's what courage has always looked like. Not certainty, not fearlessness, the willingness to continue without knowing whether anyone will understand. That kind of courage rarely feels extraordinary in a moment. It usually feels lonely. Perhaps that's why Basquiat became more than an artist. He became evidence. Evidence that conviction can exist before recognition. That identity can exist before reputation. That purpose can exist before success. Some people spend their lives waiting for permission. Others realize something history has quietly repeated for centuries. Permission rarely arrives first. The work does. Because every meaningful life begins twice. Once, when you decide who you are. And again, when the rest of the world finally notices. Basquiat simply understood which one mattered most.